like you like me too. We can take it slow, make sure we do this right. Canceled all my plans to be with you tonight. So just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go, come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but I think we were meant to be. You make me anxious. I might be stuck on you. I love the things you did for me, it seems that.
Hey, here we are, lunch therapy. We've got meerkat problems still. We have Bat hanging out at the Bat's place today. This is Ralph the Bat, not the Bat. For those of you that are fans of the Bat. I got kind of a fancy atmosphere today. We've got classical music playing, and we've got a very fantastic fire here. Warm yourself by the fire. Get all huggy. Because today we have a very sophisticated guest. We have Mr. Stephen Rosenfield. He is a comedian, coach, and he also wrote the book on mastering stand-up, which is right there, Mastering Stand-Up, Complete Guide to Becoming a Successful Comedian. So, hopefully he can help me out. That's what I'm hoping. But we'll see. I'm checking the chat room here. Let's see who's here. Cade is here. Holy, Cade. Cade is also a stand-up comedian. Loretta is here. She shared a post last night about the benefits of lunch therapy, right? You can find it on my profile page. All right, I'm going to check that out. Vernis is here. She is an acting coach. So we'll see the difference between an acting coach and, actually Stephen is also an acting coach, but he's a stand-up coach. We got a lot of coaching going on here. Ben McKnights is in bed. See, that's the thing about lunch therapy. You can enjoy it in bed. Michelle, welcome Michelle to lunch therapy. I just wanted to say that this morning when I got up, I weighed myself. Yeah. So let me tell you this: if you haven't weighed yourself in a while, don't. All I could think of when I saw the number was, what would Jared Leto say? For those 2% of the people out there who don't know who Jared Leto is, Jared is probably one of the world's greatest starvation artists. Yeah, he's so thin and so ghost-like. Let me see if I can pull up a picture of Jared. Here's Jared. That's Jared Leto. Clearly doesn't eat a lot of cake. He's almost hyena-like, hyena skinny. That's him with his cult. This is him. This is him on his Instagram. He likes to act like he eats cake, but he's one of those people that's like, I forgot to eat today. I think I'll have a banana. Or like they say, eating is such a chore. Those people drive me crazy. I don't know about people in the chat room. Let's see what they say in the chat room here. Hi, Pam Palmieri is here. Happy Friday. There's your Jared picture. You're welcome. You're welcome for that. I was going to say, why? Yeah, why? Why did I get on the scale? I don't know. Don't do it. What was the number? The number was not so good. I don't put the numbers up. I don't say how old I am. I don't say how much I weigh. Yeah, he is a great actor. Nothing not to take away from Jared Leto. He's a great actor. I'm just jealous of him. That's all. I mean, he's got that massive cult. I was thinking today about the cult of the hummingbird, and I imagine there's some guy at the Homeland Security who's been tasked with following my behavior throughout the day because they're like, hey, Jim, there's this cult of the hummingbird. You better keep an eye on it because, you know, cults can be dangerous. And so Jim is like, he's been monitoring, tracking my movements. And I don't know if you've seen, there used to be that cartoon called Family Circle or Family Circus. And they would track the kid all around the neighborhood with like a dotted line. Here it is. It was in a thing called a newspaper. Sometimes I use that archaic terminology in the show. And he would go around. They'd be like, hey, you know, I just came home from school, and that would be his path. If you were to track my path, it would just be like one dot over and over and over in the same place. It'd be like an ink blot. Super boring for Jim as he tracks me. But, you know, I just wanted to do a shout out to Homeland Security and their cult division. Today is Interview Friday. A lot of you came for the interview. Some, you know, usually we have a very prominent figure. Today we have Steven Rosenfield. He is one of the most prominent stand-up coaches in the industry. He is the founder and the director of the American Comedy Institute in New York, which is a fantastic organization. He also wrote the book Mastering Stand-Up. He's in the green room right now, and I feel sorry for him in there because it's really messy. And my assistant, Boney, never cleans up. Let's see. Cade says SAG and Golden Globe nominated. Oh, you're talking about Jared Leto. Will I be contacted by the cult now that I'm a member? Yeah. No, I don't think. Yeah, it's a comedy cult of the hummingbird. Anyway, let's get on with the show. I've got Steven here, and I'm very lucky to have him here, and hopefully he won't run away when he sees Boney. I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 Yeah, sometimes I have to translate abbreviations from the chat room. And this is no exception here. Ray Scanlon says cock. And you know, he means Cult of Comedy, of course. Cult of Comedy. Many of us are members of the Cult of Comedy and the Cult of the Hummingbird. These are some elk sent in by Todd Lee. He's a member of the Cult of the Hummingbird, which is just viewers of our show. It's a kinder, gentler cult. It's really just people that want to help each other and lift each other up, and that's all it is. And one of the things that we do in this show and in the Cult of the Hummingbird is we breathe. Yeah, we practice breathing. So today we're going to do 3 breaths. Every show we do this. So in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. I hope Steven is in the green room breathing as well, because it's important. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Inhale the future. Exhale the past. Let it go. You know, recently they did some kind of study at Northwestern University, and they found that just even the rhythm of breathing creates electrical activity in the brain that enhances emotional judgments and memory recall. So, in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. And let it go. We've got a good group here today. People can chat from Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you happen to be. And we will see them I will put them on the screen so you can ask Steven questions if they come up. I'm going to, of course, ask him questions as well. He's been teaching comedy for over 3 decades, so he's really a wealth of information. And I'm going to bring him on now. This is our live guest, Steven Rosenfield. There he is. Steven Rosenfield seems to have fallen asleep. Perhaps. Perhaps he's frozen. Oh,
It's like
no.
I'm frozen.
You are
Can you-
frozen.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm going to do?
What?
I'm going to show, I have a little clip from your website about the American Comedy Institute. And I could
Okay.
show it, and perhaps you could go out and come back in. But, we could look at your frozen face and listen to your voice as well. But anyway.
It's hard for me to keep this pose going for long.
You're faking me out.
I'm gonna restart my computer, so I'll rejoin you in like 2 minutes.
Okay, we like to say roll the kernel around here instead of restart your computer because that enrages people, as you know.
Okay.
So go ahead and roll the kernel, and I'll see you back on the other side.
Okay, cool.
Concepts that are enormously useful in terms of learning how to create the material for yourself. The philosophy of the American Comedy Institute is to provide its students with training in all of these areas so that they can pursue their gift not just as stand-ups, I should say not only as stand-ups, but also as actors and also as writers. You gotta look at the comic idea of what you're saying. I love working with performers. I enjoy that more than anything.
He has the most uncanny ability to warmly critique you and at the same time kind of move you forward. I come in with reams of kind of ideas randomly jotted on napkins at airports, that I kind of stuff into my bag, and then I'm like, is that funny? And he isolates what's funny about it.
The workshop actually wasn't my idea. It was a group of comics who wanted to be able to work with me in a class situation, who wanted to work privately with me on their writing, and they also wanted me to be able to be in the club when they were performing. You see something funny, write it down. You hear something funny, write it down. If it's not a comedian, another comedian who said it, write it down. Here are the goals of the workshop. Number 1 is for you to learn more about your own sense of humor. The second goal is that I want to help you tap into what is original. Originality is probably the single most important element in terms of people making it in this business. It's therapy because they get a chance to talk about their problems, which is what a lot of comics do, which is good because, comedy, there's got to be a struggle. Okay, happiness is a wonderful thing, but it's not funny. 3 is to learn the basic techniques of creating stand-up comedy material. How do you go about creating the material for yourself? The key to a first draft, folks, is not to throw anything out. Give yourself the freedom to explore what's on your mind, and then out of that we'll craft comedy material. The next goal is to, at the end of the workshop at the club, perform about 5 minutes of your material. The audience doesn't care. They're enjoying you. They're having a great time with you. That's what they're there not to laugh at every single joke. They're not thinking that way. They're there to have a good time. They're there to be entertained. And if you do win their trust, you can entertain them when the material, your jokes are working, and you can entertain them when they're not working. They feel what you feel.
Okay, so I'm still waiting for him to come back, but let me just tell you a little bit about him. He's been doing, like I said, teaching stand-up for over 3 decades, and alumni of his program include Jim Gaffigan and Lena Dunham and Michelle Buteau, and here he is. I'm totally vamping, and he's back. All right, so he's got, I'm just going to finish this thought. His students have made development deals with CBS, ABC, Fox, HBO, Paramount. They have appeared on Leno, Conan, Daily Show, SNL, Last Comic Standing, Comedy Central. And he is now here. And let's see if he can do more of his ventriloquist act, because it was pretty good. It looked like he was frozen. Yay! All right, there he is. And he's actually moving. I saw him blink. Welcome.
Wait. Oh, am I moving?
You stopped for a second. Oh, this is going to be like that.
Oh, it's sort of in and out. Look at that. Okay, let's give it a try.
Let's give it a shot. That's the thing about live guests, is it's super fun, but you never kind of know what's going to happen, huh? Anyway, you seem to be moving. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Lunch Therapy, the place
you
where
very much.
anything can happen.
Uh-oh. I think it already has.
I think it has. Oh, man. All right. Well, anyway, Stephen, it's so great to have you here. One of the things that is unique about you as far as stand-up comedy, well, maybe it's not unique, but you came at it from a completely different angle than most people. Is that right?
That is correct.
You came from the theater world?
I did come from the theater world. And in between directing assignments, I'd coach actors. And that was in the 80s when there was this gigantic stand-up comedy boom going on here, where comedy was rock and roll during that period.
Yeah.
And comedians started coming to me for coaching. And in working with them, I realized that it wasn't only a matter of their performance that needed to be worked on. Unlike the actors that I was working with, we weren't dealing with the script. The script was already set. We were working on developing a terrific performance. Mm-hmm. But I realized that the writing wasn't as good as I thought it needed to be. So I just started rewriting and working with their stuff just to, because there was a gig coming up and something needed to be done.
Yeah.
I think because I came from the theater as a director, I think I had an ability to write in other people's voices and in other people's kind of mindsets.
Well, that's important, right? I mean, when I've had people say, after I do a set, they're like, I could write some comedy for you. And I've tried it sometimes, and I feel like a lot of times it just doesn't sound like it's coming from me. Like I'm kind of like, exactly. I could never say that, Right. And so sometimes I can take what someone's written for me and then kind of change the point of view and then find something that I can do with it. But in general, to write for comedians or help them write, you have to somehow stand in their shoes, I think.
Yeah, you have to be able to write in their voice with mm-hmm. the kind of language that they use, and also in their headset, in the way they think and what their tastes are. I remember there was this lovely young comedian that was in the workshop. And when I first started teaching, sometimes I would, if someone had a suggestion for another comedian, back in those days, I would agree to hear it, which I don't, I don't do that anymore from experience.
Yeah.
And he proceeded to do this absolutely obscene pussy joke.
Oh, no.
No more. This poor young, it was absurd. It was like, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not just, that's the thing. Really, with really good comedians, it's never just a joke.
Mm-hmm.
It's really expression of who they are. That's what makes their material special, is that it's not generic. It's not material that anybody could say. At its best, it's material that only the comedian could. Nobody else could do it justice.
How important do you think is it for a comedian to be personal about their own life in their comedy?
That's a really important question. I don't think it's all that important, frankly, because what's important is that a comedian has a vivid, original persona. That who they are behind that microphone is likable and vivid and original and funny. And with that, you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, and you're still communicating who you are to your audience.
Yeah.
I think about somebody like an old timer like Jackie Mason, who in his day was a really great stand-up.
Yeah.
Who had an absolutely hilarious persona, and never talked about his personal life ever. But it was him. It was clear, you had no doubt in your mind who that was who was talking to you. So I think you can talk about whatever you want to talk about if it's coming from a really vivid persona.
And when you say a very vivid persona, do people generally develop personas other than themselves, or that start to move away from themselves as they become more professional comedians?
Yes. The thing is, you can't be yourself because you're too complicated.
You're too complicated. You have to simplify it. Interesting.
Yeah, because you're too complicated. I mean, an audience has to get you, like that. And that's, that's a sign of a really terrific persona and comedian. Rodney Dangerfield would come out and go, "I get no respect. Yeah. I told the cab driver, take me where the action is.
Yeah.
He took me home."
He took me home.
You completely knew who he was within 10 seconds. So we're too complicated. A persona, some personas are close to the personalities of the comedians. I would say most of them really aren't.
Wow.
They're really created. They are created by the comedian, certainly.
Generally based on themselves, but then they're like a different version of themselves, you think?
No, sometimes it has almost nothing to do with
that.
I mean, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, there are great comedians out there. Steve Martin is an intellectual. He's a playwright. He writes novels.
Yeah.
He's not the wild, he's not that wild. Here, look. Here's how a persona happens. You perform your stuff in front of an audience. When you get a big laugh on something, you want to ask yourself this question: what was I talking about? Because that big laugh is an invitation from the audience to hear you talk about that more stuff from that subject. They like hearing you talk about that. And again, not the first time out with the new material, but if you've done a joke 3 or 4 times and it's not getting much of anything, you want to ask yourself the same question, because it could very well be that they simply are not interested in hearing you talk about that.
Right.
And then there's a second question you want to ask yourself when you get the big laugh, which is, what attitude, what emotion was I playing when I delivered that? Because that big reaction is an invitation for you to write material that comes out of that emotion, out of that attitude.
Yeah.
Same deal when it doesn't work. It means they don't care for you when you're operating with that attitude. I worked with a really wonderful comedian who was a guy named Rock Albers, who was absolutely hilarious when he was angry. He was hilarious.
Yeah.
He would get angry about, he would get furious at the selection that certain states made for their state bird. I mean, he would get livid over something like that. But when he played sarcastic, which kind of seems like nothing, So we learned that didn't play for him.
Anger played,
So
but sarcasm didn't.
Correct. And for some comedians, for instance, naivete plays great. They're being naive, and they're being ironic or jaded doesn't play for them, and vice versa. And there's only one way to learn that, and that's to get out in front of audiences and know how to use the feedback that you get to develop your act. And that's how a persona happens.
Interesting. So then it's sort of it's a little bit dictated by the audience, or a lot dictated by how people receive it.
Yes.
You know, Michaela said something really interesting. She works for you. When she was on the show. Yeah, she said that
you must caught her on a good day.
It was a great day. She said that narcissistic people oftentimes don't make good comedians. That's what she thought. And she said, because this is what her theory was, is that they can't perceive themselves the way the audience perceives themselves. There's like a disconnect because they don't have as much of a connection to the audience. What do you think about that?
I think I would disagree because I tell you what I've discovered. It's like the muse. I think the idea of the muse is as accurate explanation for why some people are good at something and some people are not good at something.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known wonderful comedians who are, horrendously narcissistic.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, no, you wouldn't want to bunk with them at camp. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They're no fun to be with. No, I think it's kind of here. Let me say this: there's a tremendous amount of craft involved in being a comedian, but there's also a gift, and it's inexplicable, really. I think. As to who has it and who doesn't have it.
Well,
and what's really important is that someone is smart about their work. They don't have to be smart about anything else. They don't have to be insightful about anything else. They just have to be insightful about their work.
And do you think that some people, when they go to a comedy club, they think that the person up on stage is just kind of making it up as they go along?
Absolutely. I think most people think that.
It's kind of the illusion. It's kind of the fun of it, really, I guess, is that you think they're comedians really have to be good actors. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely, they do. Listen, with any performance, kind of performing, there's something that the performer does that for the audience seems like magical. It seems like, how in the world are they doing that?
Yeah.
You go hear a great singer and it's like, there's no way I could possibly make that kind of sound. Or terrific dancers, they seem to defy gravity. It seems like, and for actors, when they have those kind of talk back performances where the audience is invited to stay after the show to ask questions, they always get one question, which is, how did you memorize all of those lines?
Yeah.
It seems like impossible.
Yeah.
And with most everything that's magical, it's a trick. It's a trick.
It's a trick.
And the trick for comedians is to become such good actors that they fool a group of people who are sitting very close to them, that what seems to be just popped into their head, that's what the audience is hearing.
Yeah.
Just stuff they thought of right there, as opposed to, as you know, material that's been worked on and honed and written and rewritten.
You are very, I find, very almost clinical about the laughs per minute and things like that. Like you're gonna, because your book is about not like trying stand-up comedy, it's about making a career as a stand-up comedian. One of the things you say in your book is that, you know, clubs expect a certain laugh per minute. And I think for comedians like myself, you start to get kind of like nervous about that, that you're supposed to provide like so many laughs per minute. Wait a minute, you know, don't constrain me to these constraints. But how important is that?
It's very important. It's very important in all forms of comedy. It's probably most important in club comedy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's interesting because the audience doesn't realize this, but their ears have been trained by seeing stand-ups on television, by listening to the late night guys in their monologues.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of a language of stand-up that they are used to hearing. And if they don't hear it, they start to tune out. Mm-hmm. And that language involves getting upwards of like 4 laughs per minute and up.
4 laughs per minute.
And if a club comic isn't able to accomplish that, they start to tune out. And there's just a primitive thing that happens, Joel. You know, I remember being at the back in when the original Improv was open and Silver Friedman was running the place. Mm-hmm. And she popped in and she popped out. And then one of my comics got like, laugh, laugh, laugh. And she wasn't even in the room. She was in the bar. But she heard the laughs. That's all she heard.
Yeah.
And she came back in and she said, who is that guy?
Yeah.
And she ended up booking him because, you know, he was delivering the goods. That's what people are there to do.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it's true in every form. You know, it's really interesting going all the way back. Charlie Chaplin, for instance. Mm-hmm. Part of what launched him as arguably the greatest, biggest star that motion pictures ever created. Yeah. Was that before he came into the business, if there was like a 10-minute film, mm-hmm. Comedy, there'd be like 2 or 3 really good laughs. Mm-hmm. And he would get 20 in the same time period. Wow. The audience was in stitches. And that's a part of the reason, in a very primitive way. That's a part of the reason why he became. It's not the whole reason, but it's an important part. People love to laugh, and he delivered it up bountifully.
One of our comments here says 4 laughs a minute might sound like an insane asylum. I think that's what you want. You want to make it sound like an insane asylum.
Let me tell you something. In reality,
yeah,
much less than that. Mm-hmm. Really sounds like an insane asylum.
Or like a morgue.
I mean, it's like after the meds have been delivered.
After the meds. Nap time.
It's nap time.
Yeah. How important is it for the comedian to come out on stage and grab their audience right away? Should you front load your best jokes in the beginning?
Yes, and at the end.
And at the end.
Yes. That's funny. Chuck has a great comment here. He says, I get 4 laughs a year. That's hilarious. Well, you just got one big one, Chuck. That's
yeah, there
hilarious.
You go. There's one. There's 2. You only have 2 more. That's great.
Yeah, you gotta come. You know, it's like Showtime. Mm-hmm. Television changed that. It's interesting. I talked to Steve Allen, who was the guy who created the Tonight Show.
Yeah,
he's the comedian who created the Tonight Show format, and he was the first host of the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
And that started in the 50s, okay? And Steve told me that in the beginning he booked his, New York comedy friends, and they'd come out on his television show, tap their pack of cigarettes for 15 seconds, to make sure the cigarette came out. They properly lit the cigarette 45 seconds.
Oh my God.
And everybody changed the channel. It's like,
so they had to grab them right away. Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't do that. Okay. I'm up against Ed Sullivan. You got to come out. You got to come out swinging.
Yeah.
And that really changed things up. Yeah. You should do, here's what you want to do up front. Within the first 30 seconds, you want to have material that has 2 A laughs in it, 2 big laughs. Each time a new comedian gets up, there's a question on people's minds. Is he funny? Is she funny? Answer that question. Answer it right away. And then you have them. And then if something doesn't work, they already made up their mind. This person's funny.
Yeah.
And they'll forgive. Yeah. And the other good thing about doing that is that it allays your big fear. I mean, the big fear is, am I going to get laughs or not?
Yeah, you feel better immediately.
It makes you feel better immediately.
Yeah,
Puts you in a good place. And then the second thing that you want in the first 30 seconds is you want to have material that really conveys your persona, who you are. It's kind of your comedy ID card. It's that this is who I am. So those are the things you want to have happen in the first 30 seconds.
When you say a comedy ID card, a lot of us comedians come out and say, I'm from Wisconsin. I'm from Bulgaria. I'm from, that's sort of how we establish ourselves. A lot of times when you see a lot of comedians, you see that. Are you saying something like, I get no respect, or, some kind of almost like a tagline?
No, it doesn't have to be. It can be anything. Mm-hmm. It can be a joke. It doesn't need to be a tagline. Mm-hmm. It needs to be original. I mean, I'm from New York, arguably doesn't set me apart right away. It's not like people in the city, oh, honey, he's from New York.
Especially if you're in New York.
Yeah. Knows everybody else we've seen for the last 10 years. So you want something arresting, certainly.
Here's a question. Ray Scanlon says, do you think storytelling comedy has taken a front seat in the past couple of decades?
It's certainly popular. And it's become popular, yes. Mm-hmm. There was a time, there was that sort of Seinfeld area when almost nobody was doing storytelling kinds of stand-up. It was all observational. What's with the Chinese menus? It was all what's with, and then the pun. And the idea of doing story.
Yeah,
right. Is it just me or punchline? And storytelling was really frowned upon. Mm-hmm. I had a very renowned comedy stand-up teacher teach for me, and someone started a story and she interrupted him. I think he was like 15 or 20 seconds into the story. And she said, nobody's interested in your stories.
Oh, ouch. How?
And that, thankfully, has changed. Storytelling is a great form of stand-up. It's also a great way of conveying who you are. And it's a great way of tapping into what's original about you, is your stories.
And what do you do with people that are in your book? This is something really interesting about the book also, is Stephen goes through different types of comedy that you might, not that you just do one type of comedy, but you can do all different types of comedy. One of them is storytelling. Do you have the person tell the story, and then do you go back and find the punchlines in the story, or how do you usually work with somebody on a storytelling bit?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
The first thing is tell your story. Get your story out there.
Yeah.
And then we locate where the funny, where the laugh lines are. And then we start to kind of restructure it. The kind of the craftsmanship secret of storytelling is that it sounds like it's organized chronologically, but actually it's organized by subject. So here's my first subject. Here are 2 or 3 punches, 4 punches for that. And here's my next subject, and the punches come. But the beginning is get your story out, get it out.
Here's Todd Lee is saying, maybe this has been talked about, but what about doing comedy over Zoom? Is it even possible? It's a very good question in these days.
Yes, it certainly is. Yes, the answer is yes. Next question? No.
The answer is yes.
Here, let me put this in context. These platforms that people communicate in and on change. So stand-up used to be done in really rough saloons in the 19th century. That's where it started. Then it moved into very polite vaudeville houses, which was family entertainment. And then radio and movies came in. And then television. And then the internet. And comedians moved from one of those platforms to another, arguably more gracefully and more fastly than almost any other performers did. Because the essence of what you're doing is you're talking. You're entertaining people by talking. And if you can talk and be heard, then you're on a platform where you can definitely do comedy. And one of the things that we've learned during this period is that the Zoom format offers possibilities that are really unique to it, which are terrific. I mean, your audience is they're literally, you're on a screen and they're like 1.5 feet away from you.
They're so close.
They're so close.
You can almost lick them.
Really, and that really opens up some wonderful new possibilities. It's really established a new spatial relationship between the comedian.
I have this idea for Zoom, and I'm trying to get a hold of them. Is they could have audience mode, where you click a button and you choose one person to be the comedian or the performer, and everybody else goes into audience mode. In audience mode, the audience sounds far away and maybe a little echoey. So it could be just like a club. Like people could even talk like quietly to one another. And I would just think it would feel much more like a club. And I mean, I know we're not trying to make it exactly like a club, but we want people to be able to laugh and also people to feel comfortable. And I think when everybody's right at the microphone, it makes it hard because then no one has taken the stage. That's why you have a stage, and that's why you raise it up. So
that's right.
What we find is we either do no feedback or some feedback, or we do a chat room, which I love the chat room, by the way. They're really going to town too.
Interesting.
So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. I think I'm going to try and get Zoom to just add that feature, or somebody, it could be Microsoft Teams or something. Let's just see what the chat room has to say here. Lauren says, I've always been great with impressions, but keep them to myself. I've wanted to try it on stage for the longest time. Do you think that style of comedy works today in online shows? Impressions.
Sure. Absolutely. People love impressions. I mean, they're go and do it, Lauren. People love them.
Yeah, I love impressions.
It's look here. Let me just say that a key to it is there are two things. One is you got to really nail the impression. Okay, you want to pick people whose vocal range is the same as your vocal range.
Yeah.
It's not even enough to do them vocally with accuracy. It should be in the same musical range as your own voice. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is you need for the material to be funny. It's not enough simply to be somebody else. But go for it. Absolutely. People love it. Absolutely. And Zoom could open up a great thing. I'm just thinking about the people that we see most often on Zoom. Somebody like Brian Williams,
Mm-hmm.
The people who are on, who were watching on television on screen.
Yeah.
They're either Zooming or they're on Skype. This would be a great time to do it. Have your celebrity Skype in or Zoom in.
Totally.
That would be really funny.
I have a character on the show that I did an interview with, where I interviewed him, and I'm both people. And I found that super fun. I mean, it's a little bit tough to do, but there's so many different options, out there for us in Zoom. And that as performers, we always have to take the challenge and then see what we can do with it. And so I guess that's probably what we're doing. And we've been doing that for the last 10 months, but it's going to continue.
I think it will continue. Like a lot of things that are happening now during the pandemic, I think some of them are, and I mean it in a good way. I don't mean it in a bad way, but I think they've opened up some opportunities that we didn't, that necessity put into play for us. And I think some of it will stay.
Yeah. And that's something I wanted to mention to people out there who are watching this. Stephen does do his coaching and does workshops online through the American Comedy Institute. So wherever you are, even if you're in Australia and you want to stay up in the middle of the night, you can get online and learn from the best. And that's such a great opportunity. I was talking to an actress the other day, and she was saying she was taking an acting class in England. And you're like, well, that's kind of like a dream that people have. But now these things are so much more possible because everybody's online. And it's
That's true. And I have to say, and this from your experience, Joel, that it is so much fun to be sharing the same time and as well as space with people from, literally.
Isn't it great? Yeah, I love it. And people from all over the country and all over the world. It's just, I'm just really digging it. All right, Stephen. Well, I guess we're going to have to wrap it up because we're heading towards the end of the show, but it's been such a gift to have you on the show. I'm sorry about what happened with the video, but I just thought, let's just ignore that. Let's just keep going. It freezes every so often, but you just had, the voice never cuts out or anything. So I feel like it was just wonderful. And Todd Lee says augmented reality would be a powerful platform. I played poker using Oculus and it was great. I think that is where we're headed. I must say, right now I have so many two-dimensional friends that I've met online, like Stephen. Stephen and I have never been in the three-dimensional world together, but he's a friend and a mentor to me now. But I do think eventually...
I never realized that until you just said it.
Yeah. Two-dimensional people. I don't even know if Stephen has a third dimension. I don't even know. He's never revealed it to me. Everybody's very happy that you came on the show today. Thank you for giving us this wisdom. And everybody should check out Stephen's book, which I'm going to put on the screen, of course, which is called Mastering Stand-Up, The Complete Guide to Becoming a Successful Comedian. And the thing about it is this is a very comprehensive book. So if you like what he was saying today, which I'm sure you did, you'll find a lot more in here, and also some stuff about the history of comedy that is really useful. I know one of the people that Stephen mentions in the book is Jackie Moms Mabley, who is a comedian I never heard of before, but she was like the mother of stand-up comedy. And I invite you to check that out and get this book. Cade Alexi bought it already. And reading.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm in trouble again. They do have an Audible book, I believe. You have an Audible book of that, I think, too, right?
Yes, that's right.
So there you go, Jack. Holly, thanks for being here. She loves the book. She's read it over and over. Yeah, it's one of those books that becomes your kind of Bible as a comedian, where you have to remind yourself of things. You could read it right before you go on stage. Yeah, there's a lot of people that love your book. I know it's one of those books that becomes dog-eared because you're like, oh, I forgot that again. I got to go back. And Ray's purchasing it now. All right, thanks, Stephen, and I really appreciate it. You can go ahead and drop off now. I do this thing called the dance party at the end, where I feature a musician, and I will see you soon, virtually, if not in 3 dimensions.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, well, that was fun. Stephen, wealth of information, jeez. Thanks, Jack. Jack has his channel on YouTube called Jack Does. Flock on over there, hummingbirds, and subscribe if you haven't. Mae West, another great comedian. It's a good point. Ginny Sykes is here. She is a hilarious comedian, and if you've seen this show at all, you've seen Ginny Sykes. But you can also see her on the podcast she recently did, which I can't think of what it's called, so you're going to have to tell us during the singing break. Chuck Goldsmith. Epic. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Ray. Hey, thanks, Ray, for being here and adding your insights. It's great to hear. All right, we're moving on to dance break. This is a guy from Denmark that I had on earlier this week. He's singing one of my favorite songs, Me and My Arrow, by Harry Nilsson, and I'm going to be showing Todd Lee's dogs dancing around in the snow. So here we go.
Me and My Arrow.
Me and My Arrow. This is the guy. I love this song. But here are the dogs in the snow. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Next week we're going to have some incredible guests on the show. One of them happens to be Marty Croft from Sid and Marty Croft. I gotta shut up.
Straighter than arrow. Wherever we go, everyone knows it's me and my arrow.
I think it's a song about a dog, right?
Me and my arrow. Taking the high road.
Good crowd here today. Thanks for joining us.
Wherever we go, everyone
what are the dogs' names, Todd? I forget.
It's me and my arrow.
I could recognize them anywhere, though.
And in the morning when I wake up, she may be gone.
Andreas is
I just
singing,
don't
I
know.
should shut up.
And if we make up just to break up, I'll carry on. Oh yes, I will. Me and my arrow. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Straighter than arrow. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Wherever we go, everyone knows it's me and my arrow.
I'll try both. Yeah, do them both.
And in the morning when I wake up,
Margot.
she may be gone.
Margot's the little one? And Georgie.
I just don't know.
Loretta.
And if we make up,
have a great weekend, everybody.
I'll carry
this has been Lunch Therapy.
Oh,
See
yes,
you
I will.
on Monday. Have a great weekend.